At long last, rookies have reported to Dolphins training camp as we finally get some real football to talk about here. We'll break down some rumors, trade rumors on the Dolphins today, but if you are excited that rookies are reporting training camp is finally here, flood the comment section by typing in me. Dive into the trade rumors, beginning with Josh Jacobs. Both SB Nation, the Dolphins site, and Pro Football Network have linked the Dolphins in more hypotheticals to a potential Josh Jacobs trade. As I'm sure you all know, the Raiders and Jacobs did not get a long-term deal done before Monday's franchise tag extension deadline. Jacobs is expected to at least skip some of training camp, maybe going into the regular season. And that's led to speculation, ideas, theories about, hey, look, the Dolphins have had interest in Dalvin Cook. Could they go after Josh Jacobs instead? Now, PFN had 4 different destinations on their list, 3 of them in the AFC East. The Buffalo Bills, the Miami Dolphins, the New England Patriots, and the Denver Broncos. I think it'd be pretty weird to see Josh McDaniels trade perhaps his second best offensive player behind Davante Adams to the division rival who also once fired him. But we're focused on the Miami side of things anyway here. The Dolphins have been tied to running backs, and Jacobs was arguably the best one in the entire NFL last season. He had almost 5 yards per carry on a heavy workload, 350 carries. Now, because we are already past the franchise tag deadline, the Dolphins would have to have Jacobs stay on his $10.1 million franchise tag tender, which maybe not as worth it in the current market for backs. But I'll also make this note. Jacobs has not signed it. There could be a compromise if Jacobs is on board with the trade of, hey, I'll take the 10.1, no complaints from me. If you can actually write stuff into it of like, I'm not going to be tagged a second time. You can take a little bit less, but you cannot take more from that perspective. You saw Yannick Ngakoue do that a couple years ago. He took less on the tender, the franchise tag tender, because he got traded, because he knew it allowed him to get to free agency, etc. Maybe Jacobs could do something similar. Probably not take less, but agree to go to Miami and not be a complainer or a pouter or whatever you might be in Vegas if the Dolphins do go out and trade for him. Dolphins linked to Dalvin Cook pretty heavily. They have Raheem Mostert. They have Jeff Wilson. They have Devon Achane. In theory, your trade could always include one of those top 2 backs, Mostert or Wilson, to potentially lighten the draft pick capital you might be giving up or in exchange for Jacobs. But look, the Dolphins have been so heavily tied to Dalvin Cook, it's only logical that you see them then linked to guys like Josh Jacobs and to Saquon Barkley, who we'll get to here in a little bit as well. So our pin comment, would you trade for Josh Jacobs or Saquon Barkley? We'll get to him more in depth, but these two are kind of tied at the hip, so we'll group them together. Y for yes, N for no. It's going to be today's pin comment, so if the ad comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there, type in Y for yes, N for no. Barkley, Jacobs in the exact same spot. The Giants and Barkley did not get their deal done. He will likely skip training camp, or at least a good portion of that. Could maybe set out a game or games as well. He's kind of threatened to skip week 1 against the Cowboys. I don't think that ends up happening, but that's kind of the only leverage threat Barkley has in his bag, and it's not the best one, so got to try it there. I will make note, allegedly, both sides, Barkley and Jacobs, were close to getting deals done. Barkley they were separated by like $2 million per year or $1 million per year and $2 million guaranteed. That was it. That didn't get it done. Kind of surprising. Jacobs was in the Raiders parking lot waiting to sign a deal if it went down. Did not go down. Barkley, meanwhile, has had some down years. 2021 was not very good. Missed some time too. 2020 only played in 2 games. Solid, better in 2019, but also missed some time. Had a big-time bounce-back season under Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka. I think that's the coaching staff gets some credit there too. Both Barkley and Jacobs, depending on where you want to stack them, are top 5, if not their top 10 running backs in the entire NFL, but they've had a tough time getting paid. And figuring out their trade value is also a little bit tricky. I'll label it for Barkley a third. I think the exact same trade value goes for Jacobs, so you can just change the names out the teams and count it as the same. I think roughly a third-round pick. Maybe you throw in a running back as well, Mostert or Wilson. That reduces it a little bit or gets the Giants or Raiders to hypothetically say yes if you're really going to have a a complaining standpoint of your running back and you don't want to have a locker room issue there, maybe. But your comp pick you'd get is a third or a fourth most likely. Might be closer to a 4. But if you want to be aggressive and make sure you go all in, maybe adding Barkley at that, or adding a third as the pick could make some more sense. So let's say you do want to trade for one of these players. You have to pick one. You can't just say neither, or if you want to type in DC or Dalvin Cook, that's fine too, but that's not what we're focused in on. Pick one to trade for. SB for Saquon Barkley or JJ for Josh Jacobs. Let's look at the wide receiver rankings here. And this is where ESPN, coming through the last of their positional rankings, top 10 wide receivers based on execs, coaches, and scouts, allegedly, anonymously voting. Hill was number 4 in the rankings. Now, Tyreek checked in as high as number 1 on some voters, which I was kind of surprised by. I didn't think he'd get that many number 1 votes, but he got at least one. And as low as number 9. So a unanimous top 10 wide receiver in the NFL, which should not come as a huge surprise. Justin Jefferson was number 1, Devontae Adams, Jamar Chase, then Tyreek Hill. Cooper Kupp was number 5. You might be able to argue with some of the ordering for the top 5, but overall, I think they did a pretty good job. Jaylen Waddle, who we'll get to here in a little bit, not in the top 10. Stephon Diggs, A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin, and CeeDee Lamb then round out that top 10. So where do you rank Tyreek Hill among NFL wide receivers? Is number 4 accurate to you? Would you put him at 1 or 2 or 3, or would you put him even lower? Go vote for me in the comment section right now. Here's what one quote-unquote veteran NFL scout had to say about Tyreek Hill. Cornerbacks are still so scared that he'll run by them that they give him a huge cushion and he can win underneath. Having a different quarterback did not take the luster off for him. One NFC executive had this to say. He won't give you comeback routes, dig routes consistently. Still a bit of a vertical gadget guy. First off, I've never heard the phrase vertical gadget player. That's just deep threat. That's what that is. Anyway, what does he take? What he does take less precision than Justin Jefferson or Stephon Diggs or Adams because he has so much room to work with. Both those comments kind of saying similar things, by the way, of the speed kills for Tyreek Hill. Also kills for Jaylen Waddle, who we'll get to in a little bit in a moment here, more in depth. But if you are a true diehard Dolphins fan, hit that sub button, youtube.com/Dolphins News, for more free videos each and every single day. So Waddle did not crack the top 10. Is that disrespectful by the ESPN rankings? He was, I want to make this note too, by the way. The voters only rank the top 10, and then the honorable mentions get sorted in order. Waddle was 15th in that. I would make this point, though. It probably works decently for, 10 to 15 to 16 maybe, not so much beyond that, because you're not voting 11, 12, 13. You might have a bunch of voters who would put Waddle at like 12 or 13 or even 11, but if they're only ranking their top 10, then Waddle gets left out, and you kind of get some blurring of the lines of this next group of honorable mentions. Deebo Samuel was number 11. Mike Evans was number 12. T. Higgins was number 13. Garrett Wilson, 14. Waddle was 15. Devonta Smith was number 16. I think you can make an argument for Waddle being in that top 10 conversation and being over guys like, maybe what I would just do simply is maybe flip Waddle and Evans to keep it simple. I like Mike Evans a lot, a borderline Hall of Fame player, but I think he's a bit on the decline. Plus, I think he's kind of a rough year with mediocre quarterback play. Waddle is so explosive, dynamic, I think he should be above that number 15 spot. Here's what one senior NFL executive had to say. What does senior NFL exec mean? I don't know. I've been around the NFL for a long time, I guess. He says he's, quote, not a small gimmick guy. He's the real deal. I take him over most of the guys in the league. Pure speed, but knows how to win at any level of the field. With Waddle and Hill combined together in Miami, I think there's pretty clear options for the best wide receiver duos in the NFL. All these numbers, by the way, per the ESPN rankings, Jamar Chase 3, T. Higgins 13, Tyreek Hill 4, Waddle 15 for the Bengals and Dolphins respectively. I think those are probably your best bets for best wide receiver duo. Then it's A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith in Philadelphia, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett in Seattle, and then the other two teams that had multiple guys in the top 26, including the receiving votes. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin in Tampa, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams in LA. So do you think the Dolphins have the best wide receiver duo in the NFL? This is the final question on today's show, so go vote. A for yes, B for no.